Close your eyes. Travel to that shore where the salty sea breeze burns your throat, blackened by the soot of 1,000 campfires, reeking of blood and sweat. Listen. Listen to the waves crashing against the rocks. No, that is not the sound of the ocean. What you hear is the deafening shriek of bronze clashing against bronze, the endless, roaring howl of shattered shields, splintered spears, and thousands of bodies crashing into the dirt. Welcome to history's greatest epic, to that bloody soil where even the gods watched from the heavens in sheer terror. Welcome to Troy. There is no logic in this story. There is no lesson. There is only pride, fury, and that cold, merciless death gleaming at the tip of a blade. Feel the rhythm. For this is the story of humanity's greatest storm. The sea was vomiting Greek ships from the horizon, wave after black wave, 1,000 ships, a colossal fleet that blotted out the skyline, drowning the blue of the ocean in the gray of wood and iron. They had dropped anchor before the towering, impregnable, sky-piercing walls of Troy. 10 years. Easy to say, but 10 long years. 10 years of dulled swords, rusted armor, and graying hair for once young heroes. The wind whispered nothing but death. And at the heart of the Greek army stood a man in golden armor, Agamemnon, king of Mycenae. An insatiable greed, eager to swallow the world, burned in his eyes. He was the king of kings. His hubris was heavier than the very armor he wore. Yet, he was not the true weapon of this army. The real weapon was not a mere man, but a breathing cataclysm woven of flesh and bone. The most flawless, the most lethal warrior the world had ever seen. Achilles, a demigod. His footsteps made the earth tremble. The shadow of his sword turned everything it touched to ice. When he descended upon the battlefield, the wind held its breath, time slowed to a crawl, and death itself dropped to its knees in reverence. But that day, it was not blood that spilled on the shores of Troy. It was venomous pride. Agamemnon, simply to feed his colossal ego, simply to declare, "I am the god of this army," forcefully seized Achilles' war prize, the slave girl Briseis. The square froze. Tens of thousands of soldiers held their breath. Even the wind stopped blowing. They saw the hellfire ignite in Achilles' eyes. His hand went to the hilt of his sword. Had he drawn it in that fraction of a second, Agamemnon's head would have parted from his shoulders, and his blood would have cascaded into the dirt like a waterfall. But he did not draw it. Achilles did something far more terrifying, far more lethal. He narrowed his eyes, a blood-curdling smile crept across his lips, and he turned his back, walking slowly to his tent. He made a vow: "Burn without me, die without me. As Trojan swords carve your flesh, as your blood paints this beach crimson, I will sit in my tent, sipping my wine, listening to your screams." The heart of the Greek army stopped beating in that tent that very day. Achilles was gone. The angels of death had withdrawn from the Greek ranks, and the walls of Troy, seeing this, roared with hope for the first time in years. The colossal gates of the city slowly, agonizingly creaked open. A man stepped out. As the sun struck his armor, he flashed like a blinding thunderbolt. Prince Hector, the golden child of Troy, its honor, its invincible sword. Hector descended upon the battlefield like a hurricane. His sword whistled through the air. His shield boomed like thunder. He cleaved into the Greek lines like a battle axe. Striking and shattering, shattering and roaring. Shields were pulverized. Spears tore through rib cages like wet paper. The Trojans poured in behind Hector like a flood, like an avalanche. The Greeks were helpless. They fell back, step by step, drenched in blood, dragged all the way back to their ships. Trojan torches were raised to the sky. The flames began to lick the wooden hulls, painting the heavens a hellish red. The Greek army was burning alive. As the screams ascended to the heavens, Achilles sat in his tent, watching the wine in his goblet, listening to the apocalypse outside with cold, dead eyes. But one man could not bear it. Achilles' brother in arms, the only mirror to his soul, Patroclus. As he watched the Greeks being slaughtered and the ships burning, his heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. He rushed into Achilles' tent, fell to his knees and begged, "Let me wear your armor. Let me don your invincible weapons and lead the army. The Trojans will think you have returned and freeze in terror. Let me drive them back." Achilles could not withstand the tears in his friend's eyes. "Wear it," he said. Wear my armor. Drive them away from the ships. But do not approach the walls. Do not face Hector." Patroclus donned that legendary armor, forged on the anvils of the gods. The moment he stepped out of the tent and onto the battlefield, they thought the sun had risen again. When the Trojans saw that gleaming armor, that golden-crested helmet, their blood ran cold. "Achilles! Achilles has returned!" The screams tore through the battlefield. Fear spread through the Trojan ranks like the plague. Patroclus blew through them like a cyclone. He mowed down, crushed, and obliterated everything in his path. The Trojans scattered, fleeing in panic back toward the walls. The intoxication of victory seeped into Patroclus's blood. He forgot Achilles' warning. He pushed all the way to the walls. And in that moment, the chaos of war paused for a single second. Time turned to ice. From the parted crowd, drenched in blood from head to toe, Hector appeared. The two men faced each other. Patroclus hurled his spear. Hector masterfully deflected it. Hector narrowed his eyes, pulled his arm back, and his spear tore through the air. No sound, only the dull, sickening thud of piercing flesh and shattering bone. The spear embedded itself in Patroclus's chest. The false sun, trapped in his golden armor, slowly sank to his knees. His helmet rolled from his head. By the time Hector realized the man lying on the ground was not Achilles but Patroclus, it was already too late. Blood seeped into the soil. Drop by drop, death silently wrapped him in its embrace. When the news reached the tent, Achilles' knees gave way. He collapsed to the floor. He clawed at the dirt, pouring ashes over his head. And then he let out a scream that tore the sky in half, shook the mountains, and made the oceans swell. It was not the cry of a man. It was the howl of a wounded beast, a demon consumed by the fire of vengeance. In that moment, Achilles died. The thing that emerged from the tent was no longer a warrior, but pure, unadulterated devastation. He donned his new armor. His shield made the sun jealous, and the hatred in his eyes mirrored the depths of hell. Alone, he plunged into the Trojan lines like a tornado worth an entire army. He slaughtered not just men, but nature itself. He choked the river Scamander with so many corpses that the water turned crimson and the river could no longer flow. Jammed with the dead, his target was only one man, Hector. While the Trojans fled behind their walls, Hector waited alone before the gates. He could not run. His honor, his pride, and the entire weight of Troy rested on his shoulders. Achilles approached him like the angel of death. His steps were heavy, absolute, and merciless. They clashed. The sky thundered. Spears collided in midair. Shields boomed. But Hector knew the thing standing before him was not a mortal, but an invincible wrath. Achilles' spear found that tiny gap in Hector's neck and pierced it without an ounce of mercy. Hector collapsed. The hope of Troy, its golden child, crumbled into the dust of the earth. But Achilles' rage did not subside. He bound Hector's lifeless body by the ankles to the back of his chariot. He whipped his horses. Around the walls of Troy, under the agonizing screams of Hector's family, his wife, and his father, he dragged that noble body through the dirt, the dust, and the blood for days. Mercy was dead. Humanity was dead. Only a savage, dark vengeance remained. Night fell. The stench of blood settled over the battlefield like a heavy fog. Achilles sat alone in his tent, swallowed by the darkness. He had taken his revenge, but the colossal void in his soul remained unfilled. The tent flap gently parted. In stepped a trembling old man, wrapped in a heavy cloak. He had slipped past the guards, deep into the heart of the enemy camp, right into the tent of his son's murderer. He lowered his hood. It was the king of Troy, Hector's grief-stricken father, Priam. The old king fell to the feet of the most dangerous man in the world, the butcher of his son. With trembling, wrinkled hands, he took Achilles' hands stained with his own son's blood, and kissed them. His voice trembled with a century of sorrow. "Pity me, Achilles. Think of your own aging father. I am doing what no mortal on earth has ever done. I am kissing the hands that killed my son. Please, give me back my son's body." Achilles froze. His hubris, his rage, his godlike invincibility shattered into a million pieces in a single instant. He looked at the man before him, and saw not an enemy, but a mirror of his own absolute agony. He lifted the old king from the ground, and from his eyes, from the eyes of the invincible warrior, tears fell for the first time in years, one weeping for his lost brother in arms, the other for his lost son. Two enemies, in the pitch black of the night, sobbed together, finally understanding the utter futility of the war, the pride, and the death. The weapons went silent. The wind died down. The epic of the Iliad was etched into eternity not by the clashing of swords, but in a dark tent, through the silent, shattered tears shared by two mortal enemies. The ledger is closed.